Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Could we see a pullback in gold and silver prices in the coming week or so? That's something we're going to explore here because it's something that I think is a good thing to look at and consider, especially with regards to what our buying habits could be and the idea of this fear of missing out. But sometimes patience is key during times like this. So we're going to explore this particular theory and kind of look about what's going on in the world today and how that'll have some effect on buying decisions for most of us that are buying these metals to protect ourselves against economic instability. So let's explore. As of the recording of this video, gold and silver prices are moving up a bit, especially gold. Gold is really kind of taken off. You know, it was at a high at $1,415 last week, which was a 6-year high. And silver has creeped up above $15 an ounce, getting very close, if not at levels of inflation to the value that it was and during other times. Doing what it's supposed to do. Gold and silver both are metals that are considered safe havens. And so the question is, well, this increase, most people, the psychological and emotional viewpoint, whenever times like this occur, whenever there's a big spike, people are very excited and others are kind of bummed out, especially if you're in buying mode. But don't lose heart if you're in buying mode, because it could be a time that these metals make a pullback. But most of us, or there's a lot of speculators out there, people who comment on these and hold opinions, think that, well, we've started to see the beginning of the bull run of gold. And I've posted a video about that earlier in the year, in early spring, about how some of these analysts have predicted exactly what's happening right now. But there's a lot of different factors that come into play. You know, the bond yield curve inversion is one thing that I think has people nervous about in potential for inflation and a recession down the road. The fact that the Federal Reserve, and most people think that they're hinting that there will be a Fed rate cut next meeting in July. In fact, most people think that it's going to go down by 50 basis points by the end of 2019, that we'll see interest rates go down that much because of things like trade and Brexit and what's going on with Brexit and other factors, obviously geopolitical tensions, especially right now with Iran. And the fact that there was a strike that was basically called off at the last minute with Iran. But as I'm recording this video, last Thursday, there was a strike against the Iranian military computer systems. The same day that Trump backed away from plans for more conventional military strike. And so, in a sense, he did respond. And this is a way that I think could cripple, at least temporarily, Iran. But yet not make waves, too many waves in the market. And it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think it's important to consider these geopolitical factors that come into play. Because if there is escalation in tensions or there is an actual military strike, well, all bets are kind of off. Because you're dealing with a country who could shut off the Straits of Hormuz or greatly reduce and impair traffic there with oil. And even though the United States is more independent from other nations at any time, and at least for the last 100 years or so now, it still does make the markets nervous. And oil goes up, and we could see potential for gold and silver to go up as well, depending on that dollar index and the fear factor that comes into play with times like this. So there's a chance for a pullback, which provides for a buying opportunity. But if there is a buying opportunity for gold and silver, I always encourage my viewers, no matter what, to think about your own personal situations and finances and situations and act as responsibly as possible. The whole thing about the fear of missing out. If there's a dip in prices of gold and silver, that FOMO will continue to play a part, because you're like, okay, well, it's down now. This is only temporary because we know a recession's coming. And by the way, I do believe in some manner or form we will see some level of a recession within this year or next year. And it's just inevitable. It's the natural cycle of things, and we're overdue for that cycle to make another turn. So this idea of fear of missing out is a time for us to exercise patience that the prices do subside a bit. There's many people out there that feel silver is undervalued right now, and it has not moved along the same level that gold has. And as I mentioned in many different times, silver's role is, I think, shifting, or not necessarily even that, but the perception of silver is changing generally overall. We're seeing less and less people buy it for the reasons you and I do, and more people seeing it as a commodity. And I think in some ways it has become more diversified as a commodity in the last 6-7 years. And I think that perception, along with other things like decentralized systems of exchange, such as digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, and the like, I think are having an effect on precious metal prices. This whole idea of decentralization, this is the foundation, and being independent. These are metals of independence, gold and silver are, and that's why we hold them. We essentially are our own central banks when we hold gold and silver to some extent. But I think gold especially is that ultimate safe haven here. And so what could happen in the next week or so, or even if you're watching this video down the road and you see that the gold and silver are picking up in price, there could be a pullback. And I say that because that typically kind of is the case. Sometimes the markets overreact, and that could be the case with this particular bull run, especially for gold. Silver's been more tepid in its movement upward because I think of its role as a commodity is having a greater effect on prices than its role as dormant money or as a hedge against economic instability. Both are valuable metals. Both have a long track record, historical, that goes thousands of years, and I think that is the basis from which we can measure the true value of gold and silver. To me, that is its measure of intrinsic value. And so we know that we hold them. And, there's many people that comment whenever I make videos talking about the price movement one way or the other, whether it be large or small. It's interesting. It's fascinating to see it play out, even when the prices go low. To me, that is an example of economic factors coming into play, and silver and gold really defending themselves for what they are as an insurance policy. When people see that everything is fine and dandy in their world and in the world, people aren't as attracted to these metals. It's the fiat dollar's working for them. It's buying things. It's doing its thing. You're able to provide other avenues and be able to put a little bit more risk with your money. People to buy things, dabble in the stock market. Some people think the stock market could get up to 30,000 points, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It's 26 now. It very well could. But I am risk averse, and so that's why I have put a greater percentage of my portfolio in these metals and don't really dabble in the markets so much. And I've become so risk averse that I've actually shifted my strategy to buying more gold than silver in terms of dollar amount this year. And so that's been my goal. It's not been easy. It's a tough thing to do, to just discipline yourself, especially when the price moves as it has over the last week. Man, I can't get that ounce that I really wanted to because it's gone up $100 and some more than before. That's a big move. I mean, that's over 5 ounces of silver right there that you could buy with that increase in the price of gold. But I do believe it's something that can really help protect and preserve your wealth. Gold is really doing that and shining in that area even more so than silver. But there could be a pullback, and make no mistake, that pullback could have an effect and be in such a way that it can provide a buying opportunity. But I want to encourage you all, if it does do that and does pull back to a level, don't overextend yourself. There's this notion, and it's a practice that I make, and that is to buy at any price. So if gold were to go to $1,800 an ounce, well, if I can eke out a half ounce of gold, I'm going to do that instead of saving up for the 1 ounce of gold. It's going to dollar cost average itself. It's all about preserving your wealth and not about making wealth. That's not what these metals are for, neither of them. In fact, in some cases, you could lose some of your wealth holding these metals. You got to understand that holding gold and silver, and even especially silver, it's volatile enough that it could make a move down to where it's not going to catch up with inflation. We've seen that. We saw it in the 90s, we saw it in the early 2000s, and we're seeing it now to some extent. Not as bad as it was back then, even with the shifting role. But I think 2011 really woke a lot of people up to gold and silver, but it also gave some people a false sense that these metals were going to do something for them that which they were never designed to do, or I say they were designed, they were just their sheer existence and how they've been used as money and as stores of value for millennia. They'll never do. So the best thing we can do is hold on to your precious metals if you can. If you have to sell them, it's understandable for emergency purposes. That's what they're there for. But if you can hold on to them through times of when the prices are low, then I think that's great. If you feel like today is a good day to sell it with the prices where they are, with the chance that they could go lower, well, that might be something you can make a play on. That's how you could use silver and gold as an investment. Well, gold in this case, not necessarily silver. And so it's something to certainly consider. Nonetheless, we are here. These metals, they are working for us to protect us. And that's what it's about. It's about protection. And when you think about protection, what is protection? Protection is about preservation of self or an entity or a thing or an object. It doesn't change the value of that object from which it's protected. It keeps it intact. That's what protection is. That's what these metals do. They protect us. They protect us against an ever-inflating dollar. And they can protect us against a depreciating dollar, which some feel that that's the precursor to a hyperinflation scenario. So there you go. I hope you found this video helpful and encouraging. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.